Hey guys, we're actually going to do something a little bit different for PE today. I know you already did a big warm-up, so now we're going to actually go into some health. So the first thing we're going to do in our health lesson is talk about our hearing. Our hearing is located where? I would like you to point to where your hearing is or where you hear things. All right, so we're going to talk about our ears today, and we're going to talk about like how we hear, how to clean your ears, etc., etc. All right, so here's what I want you to do. I want you to take your fingers and I want you to kind of wiggle your ears like this. All right, this is your outer ear. And if you feel it, if you kind of pinch a little bit, that's your cartilage. Cartilage actually never stops growing, which is kind of strange. So if you see an older person, like they're like in their 90s and their ears like, hello, that's good for them. They can probably actually hear. It helps them hear. But your ears never stop growing, which is kind of creepy. All right, so here's what I want you to do. I'm going to say 3 sentences, and I want you just to listen, just like this, like you're just staring at the screen. After I'm done, we're going to do something different and see if it changes how you hear it. All right? All right, here are my 3 sentences. Once upon a time, there was a little girl named Mrs. Wachs. She wasn't Mrs. Wachs when she was a little girl because she wasn't married, but she lived a happy childhood. Okay, that's just normal, right? Now I want you to take your hands and cup them and put them behind your ears like this, like you're trying to really focus on what I'm saying. All right, this is not going to be exact word for word, but it's going to be close. So you're like this. Now listen to the difference. Once upon a time, there was a little girl named Mrs. Wachs. Now, obviously, she wasn't Mrs. Wachs when she was little because she was a little girl and wasn't married yet. But anyway, she had a great childhood. All right, now take your hands back. I want you to think of something that was different from when it was normal and when you did this. So I want you to think, you can either write it down, tell your grandma who's sitting in the corner, say, oh, that it sounded different. So I'm going to give you 5 seconds to think of how it sounded different. All right? All right. So the main difference that you should have noticed is that when you did this, you could actually hear better. It was louder. And the reason is that this catches sound. So if you make this bigger, like this, you're going to hear a lot more sound. All right. So if you think about a cat has those pointy ears. Those little cups on the cat or the dog, it's capturing a lot of sound. They can really hear a lot of things, probably better than we can. So it's kind of an interesting thing how this outer ear helps gather that sound. All right. Isn't that kind of cool? All right. I want you to remember, what was this made out of? Does anyone remember the name of what your ear was made out of right here? It starts with a C and it never stops growing. It's your cartilage. All right. So now we're going to talk about how sound goes into the ear and how it works. All right. Hold on. All right, guys, this is a drawing of our ear. There are 3 parts to your whole hearing. One is the outer ear, and you can see that's where the cartilage is, and that kind of captures the sound. The second part is the middle ear, and that's where your eardrum is. So if you get water in there, it kind of gets all sloshed around right in that area. And then we also have the inner ear, and that's where the cochlea, it looks like a shell right there. That's where it interprets the sound, all right, and then sends the message to your brain. So this is how we hear, and we're gonna go into more detail in a little bit. All right, we're gonna do a little activity to kind of make this more exciting. So I want you to actually put your hands here, not just set them there, gentle. And I want you to hum as low as you can, like, So everyone do this. So the sound is coming from your throat, all right here where your voice box is, and it's going right into your ear, and then that message is sent to your brain. All right, that was a low hum. Now I want you to just hear, and I want you to kind of do a high, but keep your mouth closed, like. So everyone do that. All right, even though we're doing the same action, it sounds different because we're changing the length of our vocal cords just by our thoughts. So that's kind of cool. So that's how your ear works with your brain to hear the sound. And has anyone ever heard their voice recorded? It always sounds so different. So when we hear our voice right now, like if I'm speaking, I hear it from inside my head. But when I watch this video back in about 30 minutes, my voice won't sound like how I hear it. So it's kind of crazy how you would hear it differently. All right. Let's see. What would be worse for your ears? Someone whispering a secret or someone sitting right next to you and screaming at the top of their lungs? Which one would be worse for your ears? If you said screaming, you are right. All right, any loud noise actually does affect the hearing, just like earbuds. So if you have a brother, sister, or if you listen to a lot of sound coming into your ears, that if you listen to it too loud, it will destroy your hearing. All right, remember, it goes into that drum, and it actually starts chipping away and making that bones, those little bones in there, it actually makes them bigger. You don't want those little bones to be bigger because that means you can't hear. So remember, if you're doing that, you can listen to music, but just don't have it blasting, all right? Your ear shouldn't be bleeding at the end of any kind of musical experience. So just make sure you're being safe. Try to stay away from really loud sounds. And if you are, you can wear ear protection, all right? All right, see ya, bye. All right, now that we talked about the outer ear, we're gonna go into the middle ear. The middle ear is when the sound is coming in and it's going into what they call the eardrum, all right? It actually has a tympanic membrane. A timpani is a big, huge drum that they use in orchestras. So it's a big drum, and that's why we call it the eardrum. So the sound will go in to your ear right here. Don't put your finger in there. It goes into the canal, and then it is going in, the sound is going into this eardrum. Inside the drum are two basic things. One, you have 3 little bones, and you have fluid. So anytime that those are disrupted, your hearing is going to be affected. So if you go swimming for a long time, you went to the cove or you went swimming pool, and then for like 2 hours, it sounds like you just can't hear very well. There's still water in your ears, but you can't quite get it out. It's putting too much pressure on that eardrum, so it changes the sound. Same thing as if you are driving up over a mountain or if you go flying in an airplane. So if you go up, the pressure inside your ears affects the fluid inside that drum. Isn't that kind of cool? So sometimes, like if you're chewing gum or you yawn, it'll pop your eardrums. Now you shouldn't like ever try to do it on purpose, but sometimes if I'm driving over the mountain, I'm like, oh, my ears sound so weird. I will get a piece of gum and chew it. And a lot of times that will help pop that eardrum back to the proper pressure. Otherwise it's creepy. All right, has anyone ever had an ear infection? Think about it. You had to go to the doctor, they had to look in your ear, they're like, yeah, you have an infection. All right, well, what happens is this ear canal is very close to our nasal cavity, and sometimes if you have a cold, you have all this pus and just yucky stuff from a cold, it can actually get into that ear canal and then cause an infection. So if you ever have that, you do need to go to the doctor and they will take care of that. All right, so that is kind of gross, and it does happen more in children because this tube is actually shorter in children, so it's more likely. As you get older, not as often. All right, so that's the middle ear. Sound is coming in. It goes into that drum. It bounces around with all those bones and fluid, and then I will tell you what happens next. It's so cool. All right, guys. So I went and grabbed a paper and a pencil. So if you don't have that sitting right by you, I want you to pause this video, run and get a piece of paper and a pencil. All right, pause it. Okay, if you're back, that means you're back. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to draw the best that you can the outside of the ear. So kind of look at your ear. You're like, okay, it kind of looks like this. I'm not looking for perfection here, people. You're fine. But remember to not do it solid, because here's just my outside ear. I'm gonna draw a little more thing in here. I'm gonna even, you know what I'm gonna do with mine? This is gonna be beautiful. I even put an earring in mine. I'm pretty fancy right there. All right, so there's the outside ear, the outer ear, all right? That's getting the sound, all right? Now I want you to draw just that tube with the eardrum. So here's the tube. So there's your outside your ear. Your sound's coming in, and there's your eardrum, all right? What's inside the eardrum? Do you guys remember? It's water or fluid and 3 little bones, all right? The 3 little bones help distinguish different sounds, all right? So there's our eardrum. I'm gonna write eardrum. Now, if you're little, don't write your eardrum, just draw the picture, all right? So that's what we got so far. So we have outer ear. This is our middle ear right here. And then we're gonna go inner ear. So now we're just gonna go a little bit farther, and I want you to draw something that looks like a shell. So I'm gonna draw it, and then I want you to copy it. So this is kind of cool. All right, so kind of draw. So outside ear, canal, draw something that's a swirly cue. Okay, that's called the cochlea. All right, the cochlea is where everything is transmitted and then sent right to the brain. All right, so I'm gonna actually, I'm gonna draw a little arrow. Now, obviously in your body there's not an arrow, but that's the nerve that sends all the information to your brain. Okay, so Once it goes past that eardrum with all the liquid and all of that stuff, it goes into the cochlea, and it transmits with all these little hairs and all this little information. There's tons of stuff in there that we're not going to go over because you are a little child. It transmits that and sends it right to the brain. So your brain's like, oh, that's what I heard. Now, so that's pretty much the ear. Now, a lot of people like to clean this part of the ear. Okay, and what do people use to clean that part of the ear? Most people use a Q-tip, right? But the only issue with that is if you're putting a Q-tip in there and you're stuffing it in, you can actually push earwax back toward that drum, and then you can't hear very well. So you can use a Q-tip for this, maybe just like right here. And really what you should do for this is like shake it or get a little tiny, like maybe a Kleenex, and just kind of use your finger so you can't get back there that far, all right? And just kind of get the sides. So that's how you would clean that part of the ear, all right? What was this called again? That's the eardrum, outer ear, middle ear, inner ear, cochlea. I call it the snail. It's not called the snail, it's the cochlea, and it sends messages to your brain. All right, does anyone know what would cause hearing loss? So let's say you know someone who can't hear at all, or maybe grandpa lost his hearing, or he's just 1,000 years old, and you're like, oh, grandpa can't hear me again. What would cause that? All right, think about it. What would cause someone to lose their hearing? All right, first thing is one, you could have been just born deaf. Deaf means that you just can't hear anything. And that means some of the bones in that eardrum, too big, they can't hear sound. It just stops, like, nope, can't hear it. So that's one thing. You're born deaf. Those little tiny bones are too big inside the eardrum, can't hear. All right, the second thing is you were somewhere and just an outrageously loud sound, an explosion went off, and it actually burst your eardrum. All right, so that kind of loud sound can cause hearing loss. All right, so loud sound, you might not completely lose your hearing, but it wouldn't be as good as it was. And the other thing is this, you're just getting old. As you get older, you tend to lose hearing because you've heard so many sounds throughout your lifetime that maybe were pretty loud, that it just starts to affect that eardrum, those little bones inside the eardrum. Okay, so that's some things you could do. Other weird things that are kind of gross is if you're using that Q-tip or you just never clean your ears ever, you can actually get earwax just impacted in there, and you have to go to the doctor to have them pull it out. You never pull it out, doctor only. That's disgusting. All right, so you're gonna pull out that earwax with the doctor, not you. Doctor's gonna pull out that earwax, and then you could probably hear better. All right, does anyone ever get motion sick? Like you are driving in a car and you're in the school bus and you're like, I'm gonna throw up, all right? So that is part of your ear. I don't know if you guys knew that. Isn't that crazy? So when you're driving in the back of a car, your body doesn't see the road in front of it. So it's like, why am I moving like this? I can feel movement. Your ear can actually help you feel movement, but your eyes are saying, we're not really moving. I just see the seat in front of me. So it makes you sick. So a lot of times people with motion sickness, people with motion sickness have to go sit in the front seat so that their eyes and their ears are like, okay, I got this. Same thing with seasickness, or if you're on a roller coaster, all of those things is actually your ear and your eyes. It's crazy. All right, good job for listening to this health lesson. I hope you learned something. You probably thought, I never even thought about my ears. That's kind of weird. But you guys probably learned something today. All right, so go back, review your drawing, mine was beautiful. So proud of it. I'm like what we call an artist. All right, review your drawing. Maybe go and tell your parents, hey, I learned something about the ear today. It was so cool. And tell them what you learned, all right? All right, you guys did awesome today. Something a little different, and I hope you got a good workout in the beginning. All right, I'll talk to you later. Bye.